Hello, hello, dear colleagues and candidates. It's nice to see you again here. Uh, Thanks for joining us at this webinar. And let's check first. If you can hear us, please write yes in the chat box. It's just to make sure that everything's working okay, all right? Thank you. I hope the sound is good. And again, hello, everybody, and welcome to this seminar. Yeah, you see, it's called today Tips to Successful Preparation for Test of Russian as a Foreign Language for A1, A2 levels. Well, actually, it's purposed for candidates, but I can see on the chart there are a lot of teachers today. Yeah, but that's good. That's good anyway. Yeah. Next. Well, my name is Oleg Krinitsky, and I work in the Language Testing Center at St. Petersburg State University. I work as an examiner and expert in testing Russian as a foreign language. Well, yes, today we're focusing on A1 and 2 levels, and we compare and make differences between these two levels. And we'll provide a lot of tips and a lot of advice for successful preparation for candidates. Yeah. Well, let's start. First, I'd like to remind you some general information about St. Petersburg State University. As you might know, this is the oldest university in Russia. It was founded in 1724, so you see, a long time ago, almost 300 years ago, and it's one of the country's leading universities. And you see, more than 30,000 students and 12,000 academic staff work here. And it's been almost 70 years of successful teaching of Russian as a foreign language at our university. Well, actually, it started in the 50s, last century, with groups of foreign students from Iran and Iraq and China. And that's all about the history of the university. Yeah, you can find more information, of course, if you want to. Now, another thing is the Language Testing Center I work for. You see, it was founded on the 22nd of August 1997, so quite a long time ago. And you see, we have Russian language testing centers, authorized centers in Greece, Germany, Turkey, Serbia, South Korea, China, Czech Republic, Norway, Great Britain, Italy, Poland, Argentina, Brazil, Iceland even, and I think in many other countries. Actually, we have 80 testing centers operating abroad. And we are also a partner of Association of Language Testers of Europe. It's called ALTE, and we issue internationally recognized certificate, actually state certificate. Let's have a look at it. Yeah, the certificate looks like this. Yeah, maybe it's a bit modest in design, but it's a state certificate, internationally recognized worldwide. And here on the left there, candidates, successful candidates who's got this certificate, well, when successfully passed the exam. Another thing, well, today, as I told you, we're focusing on A1 and A2 levels. Well, sometimes they're called elementary and basic levels, according to the Common European Framework of Reference. You might know what it is. It's an international standard for describing language ability. It describes language ability on a 6-point scale, as you can see here, from A1 for beginners up to C1 for those who have mastered their language. Well, A1 and A2 are the first ones on these scales. And these two levels introduce candidates to everyday written and spoken Russian. And it's an excellent way for the candidates to gain confidence and start learning Russian, start improving it. Well, step by step. Well, let's take a look at these two levels briefly. Well, you see, what is important, you see, A1 level course takes 100 to 120 hours. Not much, really. And it's called sometimes, it's called the survival Russian. And you have to actively know 780 words to pass this text. And let's take a look at the diagram. What you really need, yeah, it's minimal grammar and vocabulary for everyday communication in socio-cultural area of communication. Well, actually, this minimal grammar and vocabulary provides elementary communication, of course, yeah, not much really. And actually, A2 level is just the same, but it's, well, it's a bit longer, bigger, and so on. Yeah, look at this, yeah. When for A level, you need about 800 words. Here at A2 level, you need 1,300 words to pass this exam successfully. And the time for the course at A2 level is about 180 to 200 hours from A1. So these two elementary or basic levels, in all, they take how much? How many hours? How many hours do they take? 200, yeah. Well, about 320 hours. That's quite a lot of work. And you see, A2 level is sufficient if you want to get work permit or citizenship in Russian Federation. Well, again, you see, actually it's the same. At A1 level, it was minimum of grammar and vocabulary, but at A2, we call it limited grammar and vocabulary. So it's just a bit more. Actually, it's 500 words more that you should learn and actively use in communication. Well, if to talk about communicative tasks, the range is wider here. You can, well, you can communicate in most necessary communicative situations at A2 level. Again, the range is getting much wider here. But you see, the topics are actually the same, even though the range is wider, becomes wider. Well, what do they usually talk about at this level? Their everyday routines, social, cultural, classroom, language, working areas of communication, and so on. Well, the same thing, yeah? The range is much wider here. Next. Yeah, let's take a quick look at SE4 self-assessment grids for A1 level and A2 level. I'd like to compare these two levels by language abilities. First, let's focus on listening. Look, at A1 level, a candidate can only recognize familiar words and basic phrases. But, you see, recognize basic. But at A2 level, he or she can understand phrases and the highest frequency vocabulary. And in a very limited, he or she can recognize familiar words and basic phrases in a very limited range of situations, like talking about yourself, your family, or immediate concrete surroundings, specific surroundings, like talking about your house, flat, and so on. And they can understand when people speak slowly and clearly. And at A2 level, they can catch the main point in short, clear, simple messages. Well, actually, not a big difference, yeah. But what is really different is understanding phrases and the highest frequency vocabulary. Let's talk about reading. At A1 level, when they read, they can understand familiar names, words, and very simple sentences. And let's take a look at reading at A2 level. They can read very short, simple texts. That's the most important difference. And we'll take a more specific look at this a bit later when I'll be talking about tips and advice. When speaking at A1 level, students can interact in a simple way, provided the other person is prepared to repeat or rephrase things at a slower rate of speech. So, yeah, to say it in a simple way, they interact with a lot of repetition and hesitation and a lot of support from the teacher or the examiner. And at A1 level, they can ask and answer simple questions. And spoken production or monologue, they can use simple phrases and sentences to describe where they live and people they know. So very limited areas of communication. And at A2, well, actually it's the same, but they communicate in a wider range of communicative situations. They can provide simple and direct exchange of information on familiar topics and activities. And when talking about the monologue, they can use a series of phrases and sentences to describe, well, the same range of communicative situations. And writing at A1 level, they they are able to write a short, simple postcard, for example, and filling some personal details, names, nationalities, addresses, hotel registration forms, not many really. And at A2, they can write short, simple notes and messages. Well, and very simple personal letters thanking someone for something. So again, you see, the range of communicative situations or situations is much wider at A level. Okay. Yes, colleagues, this webinar is in English. Yeah, it may seem strange for you, but it's for the candidates who are at very low levels, like A1 and A2. And of course, they can't understand or couldn't understand me if I spoke about all these specific things, specifications in Russian, in complicated Russian. That's why. That's why it's in English today. Well, and let's take a look at test format. Well, the test contains 5 subtests or papers. It's grammar and vocabulary, reading, listening, speaking, and writing. And the passing score is 66 or more % for each subtest. Yes, and one important detail, if you get 60 or more % with one of the subtests, you can pass the example. And it's, of course, possible to retake or resit 1 or 2 subtests. We move on. Yeah, exactly, colleagues, dear colleagues, this webinar is designed for students and candidates who start learning Russian. You are right. Well, let's focus in detail on grammar and vocabulary subtests. And let's compare them. You can see clearly here the test A1 test takes 40 minutes. The A2 test takes 50 minutes, 10 minutes more. That's what I've been talking about. A1, A2, well, A2 is just a bit longer, bigger, the range is wider, and so on. And you see, it has 70 tasks at A1 level, but at A2 level, it has 100 tasks, 30 tasks more. Actually, both subtests check more or less the same stuff. You see, it's everyday vocabulary, but the range is different. Here, it's about 800 words. Here, it's about 1,300 words. It checks cases of nouns, adjectives, and pronouns. But at A2 level, the focus, if at one level, the focus is on cases of nouns. At A2 level, the focus is on cases of adjectives and pronouns. And of course, it includes cases of nouns. Next, at A1, we check the conjugation of verbs. Students must be very accurate with difficult forms of Russian verbs, but we add verbs of motion with prefixes at A2 level, a bit more complicated of area of Russian grammar. At A1 level, we check only simple verbs of motion like ходить, идти, such verbs. And at A2 level, we look at the verb system on the whole, and you must know how many difficulties and complication it may cause for our students. At A1 level, we only focus on basic syntax structures, and syntax at A2 level is a bit more various and different, and with some simple conjunctions like and, because, so, and so on, in Russian, of course. Well, and if you ask me where can you find all these lexical minimums and grammar structures, well, to strictly keep up with the programs, well, I'll tell you, they're good, very good books, but they're in the end. We'll talk about them later. They're called lexical minimums for various levels, actually for the A1 level and A2 level, and standards for different levels with a number of structures which are necessary to be taught at these levels for your students, for candidates. Well, let's take a look at the example. It's taken from A2 demo taste. Well, if you're all teachers, so it'll be useless, of course, yeah? It's just easy for you. But if there are candidates from different countries, you can attempt to do this exercise and just type it in the chat box, please. So, which is the correct answer? What do you think? Seems there aren't any candidates today. In April, when we had these webinars in English, there were many students from different countries. All right. So I then, yeah. Мой старший брат уже работает, да? Хотя он старше меня только на 3 года. Well, that's excellent, Елена, but you are a Russian speaker, I'm sure about that, so it wasn't difficult for you. But anyway, thank you. And take a look at these 4 examples of the tasks in the test at A2 level. Yeah, let's do it together, not to waste a lot of time, yeah? Я choose the correct answer. Знаю, умею, интересуюсь играть на гитаре. Умею. Yeah, actually, it's a slip here. V is not necessary. Yeah, of course, it's я умею. Let's focus on 3. Мой друг посоветовал мне посмотреть этого, этот. Please. Yeah, sure. Этот. Он носит очки, потому что плохо видит, смотрит. Yes, absolutely. It's видит. Музыканты часто выступают. And you see their adjectives in different cases. Well, that's the focus of A2 level grammar. В популярные клубы, в популярных клубах, в популярные клубы. Yes, Ladislav Vratny, you must be from the Czech Republic. Yes, your answer is very correct. All right. And yeah, here are the correct answers. Okay, I'll move on. And now let's talk about some, well, they're common but very useful tips or advice for learning to use more vocabulary and grammar. Actually, there's nothing new, but students, the problem is that our students are a bit lazy, and it takes a lot of effort, actually, and patience to follow this advice. Let's take a look at them. Yeah. Tip for learning new words. It's very simple, but I'm doubting if many students do this, but it's very simple and effective. Write the word, use it, and then remember it. And keep a vocabulary book. So practice is very important. Another tip, you can write down new words in your vocabulary book. So it's a very good idea to keep your own vocabulary book. But students very rarely do this, actually. And, well, it's pity, of course. Yeah, so why should you write new words down in your vocabulary books that you can see in your so that you see in your course book or in past paper exams? You try to write words that go together. That's very important, and that's the thing, and or that's this activity our students again very seldom do. So they just randomly put down just words, just separate words. But it's very important to write down words that go together and write example sentences, so that you can learn them. Next, make sure you know vocabulary about many different topics. Ask your teacher about the topics that can be in the test. You could also use the A lexical minimum for that purpose. I'll show the book later. We are moving on. And it's very important to learn the difficult forms of Russian verbs and learn which prepositions and noun cases go with different words. Please learn collocations. Learn words which go together. That's very important, indispensable. And don't forget to practice your spelling. If you have problems with spelling a word, practice writing it again and again until you can remember the correct spelling. And try as many grammar vocabulary activities as possible at A2 level. You can find these activities in many course books and in the book which is upcoming at our university soon. These are tests, demo tests, sample tests for A2 and A1, A2 and B1 levels. They would be very practicable for you. And now we are focusing on reading. subtest. And again, when you see these two tests, uh, the differences are not big. 40 minutes for A1, 50 minutes for A2. Well, 6 parts, but they're very little and simple at A1. 4 parts, they're much bigger at A2 level, and the same amount of tasks, 30 tasks at A1 and A2 levels. Well, what kind of texts and tasks at these two levels? You can see on the slide. Phrases to be logically completed, short, simple articles. At A2 level, a passage of an article for topic identification, schedules and TV programs. Well, actually, signs, notes, short texts, and very short stories. And as you understand, at A2 level, the passages from texts are a bit longer, descriptive texts are a bit longer again, well, and so on. Oh, you asked me to speak a bit slower. Thank you. I'll try to. And let's look at type of tasks here. The first one is phrases to be completed logically. The first one, Жан плохо понимает по-русски. What would you say? Please, foreign students, which one would you choose as a correct answer? Now, the first one, говорите, I see. Yeah, I thought it was a request for me. Говорите, пожалуйста, медленнее. Yeah, exactly. Говорите, пожалуйста, медленно. And for the second task, it's A2 task. Надо отправить открытки друзьям. Very good, Ladislav. That's perfect. And try to do this task quickly. I mean students and candidates. Thank you, Ladislav. And task 4. In a minute, we'll check correct answers. Okay, thank you. Let's check your answers. You see, Ladislav, it's a bit wrong. You thought it was старинный клад, but the correct answer is this. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And task 4, yeah, the answer is correct. Well, Maria, you're asking why. That's the real problem. Yeah. Hmm. Uh, that's the real problem, and it's the reason for quite a lot of mistake. It's just the focus. Uh, you are a Russian-speaking person, or are you from Poland? I don't know. Yeah, maybe. Клад старинных монет случайно нашли в центре Москвы. Клад состоит место, где нашли на земляной город. Сегодня территория. Угу. На этом месте жили люди, которые были кузнецами. Угу. Well, it's really A is correct answer because the topic is the whole article. It's not just about Старинный клад, yeah? The topic is much wider. That's why. Yeah, of course, it reads about Старинный клад, Садовое кольцо, Кузнецы, and many other things. Thank you, Maria. So I'm talking to you, actually. Well, there are a lot of information moments in this text, but on a whole, yeah, it's about the old Moscow, kind of. Okay. And let's talk about this. How can I improve my reading? Well, actually, there are quite a lot of tips for that. And these are just 2, 3, or 4 general tips. And what's important, yeah, for the students? You see, the reading test contains different kinds of texts. So our students can try to look at texts that they can find around them or on the internet, not just in your course books. So we should encourage our students to be more active, more enthusiastic when learning foreign languages. Actually, it's the same for any foreign language. And it would be very helpful to look at signs, notices, packaging information, lots of things like that, very specific, concrete, like short newspaper and magazine articles, notes, text messages and emails from friends or colleagues, brochures and leaflets, websites, graded readers, both fiction and non-fiction. Well, so teachers or foreign language instructors, we should encourage our students and candidates as well for doing tests to read more, to read much more texts, not only the ones which you can find in your textbooks. And actually, the reading paper tests how well you can read in different ways. So you need to practice 3 skills, actually. The first one, you try to read a text quickly to get the main idea, and this type of reading is called skimming. Another type is reading a text to find out certain information, like, for example, reading a cinema leaflet to find when a film is on. Very specific information. So this type of reading is called scanning. And another type of reading is reading texts carefully so that you understand as much as possible, understand in detail. And another useful thing to do is to try to guess the meaning of words that you don't know. Well, that's a very useful technique, and it's developed during classes, Russian language for foreigners, and it's actually a challenge for a teacher to mm, to improve these activities, these practices, like guessing the meaning of unknown words. But I have, and I have some more tips for students. Students have to look carefully at the instructions and exams for each part when they are doing the test. What else? They should read the texts and the questions very carefully, and they should make sure they answer the questions. Don't just choose an answer because you see just one word that you know in the answer and in the text. And what's important, it's you should answer all the questions, even if you are not sure about the answer. Always choose an answer for each multiple choice question. And take your time. I mean, candidates, and don't hurry. There's plenty of time to answer all the questions. So I just want to say that students should manage their time very carefully at the test, and the teachers should teach them these techniques. Next, listening. Again, let's take a look and compare the two tests. Well, both tests last for 30 minutes, and at A level, one level, there are 4 parts and 20 tasks. At A2 level, there are 5 parts and 25 tasks. So it's a bit longer, it's a bit bigger. Well, in this test, our candidates will listen for phrases in both tests, short dialects, and just not short dialects for topic identification at A2 level, longer dialects, and some dialects for searching for specific information. They're, of course, much longer at A2 level, and monologues. Well, actually, the tasks are more or less the same. And the candidates must know that all texts are repeated twice. Let's take a look at the task. It's from A2 test. Я был в Париже в прошлом году. Yes. Vladislav, you are right. So, you hear this phrase, я был в Париже в прошлом году, and you just choose the correct answer, what it means, yeah? Я ездил в Париж в прошлом году. And the candidates should often ask this question to themselves. What does it mean? What does it mean? Yeah? Thank you, Ivana Kremielova from the Czech Republic, probably. Yeah. And let's do together, the candidates and me, these 3 tasks. I'll be reading phrases, short phrases, and a short conversation, and you'll try to answer correctly the tasks. So please focus on task 2. Давай возьмем такси. Мы опаздываем в театр. So, what do you think? Which answer is correct? A, B, V. Vladislav, Ivana, please. Yulia. Imad Eddin Menun. You are welcome. So you typed it's A. Sorry, it's the. Mhm. Which country are you from, Imad? Мы решили взять такси is correct answer. And Ivana, yeah, it's there, Algeria. Good, you're welcome. Now let's focus on task 3. It's gonna be just a phrase. Сегодня вечером ко мне придут гости. Which answer is correct? Three. Task 3. Ivana, you are right. Olga, you are right. It's A. Скоро ко мне придут в гости. Гости. Thank you. Now let's focus on task 4. It's a short conversation. Listen, please. Я хочу купить один билет на самолет. На какое число? На 10. Куда вы летите? В Новосибирск. Есть билет на самолет, который летит из Москвы в 9 часов. Хорошо. Сколько он стоит? Они разговаривали где? В магазине, в кассе аэропорта, в киоске. Well, Olga, Aziza, Yulia, thank you. The answer is correct. It's B. В кассе аэропорта. Well, for you it's easy, of course. Yeah, and these are correct answers. Okay. Now let's focus on how I can improve my listenings or listening, or how our candidates can improve their listening skills. Again, the tips are very simple. Nothing is really specific, but what is important is to encourage our students to practice these tactics and maybe strategies. The first one, try listening to people speaking as much as you can, even if you can't understand everything. That's very, very important. Try to listen to people in various places, like on the underground, on the train, on the bus, in the lines when you're queuing for something, in many, many places. And of course, you can find many different things to listen online. There are a huge number of things you can listen to. And that's interesting. You may find it easier to watch videos so that you can see the person speaking while you are listening. That's a bit easier to understand when you see a person, the person who's speaking. Another idea, good idea, you could also do various listening activities in your course books, which are a great number of. You can find on websites or in bookshops, even though they're closed right now. Yeah, and in past simple test books. That's important too. Another thing. Our candidates, students, should practice the letters of the alphabet. You shouldn't be surprised that that's a kind of a problem. Yeah, that's a kind of a problem when they write, listen, and read. Of course, it's for very low levels, but even at higher levels, at B1 or B, even B2, there are sometimes problems with letters of the alphabet. And what's more important are long numbers. such as telephone numbers and dates. And it's also important to practice most frequently used Russian names. Sometimes it's just prevents you, if you don't understand properly big numbers, alphabet, names, so very specific things, well, it just blocks your understanding when you are listening. So that's very important, even though these things seem very simple. Just pay some attention, give more focus to these things. Well, and we've finished with the paper-based subtests, and just a minute on how to fill out the matrices. You see, the candidates are given working matrices for to fill in or to fill out when they're doing reading, listening, and grammar and vocabulary tests. So you see, you just choose the answer and circle it. If you changed your mind on the matrix, of course, you can correct it like this. You can cross out the wrong answer and circle another answer which you think is correct. You can add it in the empty box just to make sure the person who will check your working matrix will see the correct answer. I think that's perfectly clear. Okay, and let's focus now on productive skills, their writing and speaking subtests. Well, first, our focus is on writing. You see, our candidates are given 30 minutes, one task, 50 phrases and 5 questions at A1 level, and at A2 level they're given much more time, like 50 minutes, and 2 tasks, and the format is about 80 phrases and 80 phrases for task 1 and 5 phrases for task 2. Well, what are the tasks really? Let's take a look. At A1 level, there's only one task, and it's an informal letter to a friend. What's important? The format and the quantity of sentences. That's important to follow these regulations. And you can use a bilingual dictionary at both tests for A1 and A2 levels. You see, the questions are very simple, but it's important to write the letter in informal, well, to keep the register, and many other things. We'll talk about it later. And what kind of tasks our candidates are given at A2 level? Actually, more or less the same. Task 1 is about writing an informal letter to a friend. Again, but the range of topics are a bit wider. Travels, journeys, and so on, And you see, your answer should contain from 18 to 20 phrases. Well, and you should answer all the questions on the plan, and so on. We'll talk about the tips later. And the task 2 it's about a note that our candidates must write for their teacher and explain why they haven't come for classes. And it should contain only 5 phrases, but the students must be familiar with the format of the note. That's why when I was talking about reading test, I told you that it's important to read as many short texts as possible, like signs, notes, things like that. No, Ladislav, the number, we don't count the number of words. I know in other testing systems, the number of words is, well, they count it, but actually they don't. They say they count it, but actually they don't. Yeah. Well, next. Now let's look at some tips for improving your writing, or how can you improve your writing for teachers. Well, Жилдис Тайчуева, I can see your questions. Каковы критерии оценивания письма? We'll later talk about this, okay? Well, we'll later talk about assessment criteria for productive skills. Actually, these criteria, well, are designed not only for writing skills, but for speaking skills too. Well, but now about writing, tips for better writing. Well, there are a lot of, you can use a lot of technical devices like phones, tablets, and so on, smartphones, to write short messages or emails to friends you study with and encourage them to write back to you. If possible, of course, yeah, but you should always have a try, I think, yeah, don't be lazy. Another important thing, you should learn skeletons, cliches, or examples for giving information, inviting, suggesting, thanking, and apologizing in your writing. So you should have this blocks of language in your mind, yeah, or practiced and automatized before you take your examinations. That's very, very important. And the problem is that in real Russian language learning, teachers don't very often pay as much attention as it is needed for these cliches, skeletons in writing, and this is very, very important. And you should teach yourself to write messages that are at least 5 phrases. This would be very useful for part 2 of the A2 test for writing notes. And you should practice writing informal letters to friends on different topics. You can find all topics you can come across at this level exams. Well, and letters to friends on different topics you can find in your course books, and they should contain at least 20 phrases. That would be useful for part 1 and for part 1 of A1 and A2 tests. You might remember they are actually more or less the same. And again, please look at the model answers in course books and simple tests just to know what's good, yeah, or which examples are, or which writing is a good example for you when you take a test. That's very important to know what to expect at the test from if you are a candidate, of course. And the teachers should pay more attention, give more focus for exercises like this, for modeling, skeletons, cliches, they're called, yeah, in modern English teaching language. And next, you should practice writing with the same time limit as in the example. This is the common problem, I'll tell you, that our candidates can be quite good, or their writing skills can be quite good, but they can't manage their time during the test, and then they have problems. Yeah, you understand this. So please try to write letters, well, different things. Yeah, you can find in sample test books or your course books with the same time limit as in the exam. That's very, very important. Next, another important thing, you make sure you write about all the questions in the task. Don't miss any of them. Well, because you will be subtracted quite a lot of points for this. Actually, 5 points or 10 points. Also, you should make sure your writing is in a logical order and that your sentences are connected to each other. So the teachers, you should give much more focus to this, to logic, and cohesion between sentences. And the examiners look at this when marking your writing. And it's Gildis, yeah? I'm talking about this. If your writing is not logical or the sentences are not connected to each other, we take out 2 points for each mistake. That's quite a lot. And of course, always give time to check your writing for spelling, grammar, and vocabulary mistakes. And it's again about managing your time when doing writing tests. That's very important again. The examiner will look at this when marking your writing. Well, we take out for spelling 0.5 points. Not much really, but there can be a lot of spelling mistakes, so the result can be negative. And we take 1 point for grammar and vocabulary mistakes, but it depends on the nature of the mistake. We'll talk about it a bit later. And the examiners, well, look at how clear your message is. That's very important too. Sometimes you can read quite a long story, but very illogical, unconnected sentences, not well organized, and in the end you just can't make it out what it was all about. So please pay more attention for this, both students and teachers. All right. And finally, we'll be talking about speaking. Well, actually, they're more or less the same, these two subtests. You see, candidates are given 25 minutes. The test contains 3 parts and 11 tasks. Actually, exercise 1 is uh, is answering the questions the examiner asks the candidate. For example, task 1, take part in a conversation and answer the examiner. For example, please, Ladislav, Ivana, can you answer this question? But this is unprepared, so the answer should be quick. Again, not one-word answer, of course, logical, and so on. Please, скажите, какое ваше любимое блюдо? Try to answer this question. So, this is task 1 in both A1 and A2 tests. So, if you're here, candidates, can you answer this question? Скажите, какое ваше любимое блюдо? Как бы вы ответили на такой вопрос? Okay, let's take a look at task 2. Okay, somebody's typing. Very good, Елена. Селедка под шубой. Yeah, this answer would be enough for good mark. Yeah, and it will be marked positively. And another task, it's the same in both tests. Познакомьтесь с описанием ситуации, начните диалог. In task 1, you answer the question, but in task 2, you start the dialogue. It can be a question or an etiquette phrase or maybe a sentence, who knows, yeah? Yes, Юлия, мое любимое блюдо бешбармак. Мое любимое блюдо блины. These answers are very good, just perfect. Try to do task 2. Позвоните в гостиницу и закажите номер. Начните диалог. Вот как вы это сделаете? Ну-ка, пожалуйста. 1-2 примера. Владислав, Ивана, Юлия, Елена. Please. Here in task 2, the etiquette or collocations, typical everyday collocations, are very, very important. And when you teach your students, you should give a lot of focus on this. Мне нужен Look, Ladislav. Мне нужен двухместный номер. It's okay, but where's the etiquette phrases, yeah? Алло, можно заказать номер. It's better. Можете мне посоветовать? Добрый день, я хотела бы заказать номер. That's very good. Добрый день, я хотела бы заказать номер. This is a very good start of this conversation. And if you just say like Ladislav, мне нужен двухместный номер, well, it's okay, well, but it's a bit rude, yeah? And Ivana, алло, можно заказать номер. Again, it's okay, but you should use etiquette phrases like what? Алло, добрый день, можно заказать. So you see, the task is very simple, but students or candidates often miss these etiquette phrases and, well, the points are taken out from their results. Оксана Думитраш, если у вас свободные номера, look, again, these are very good questions, but your answer will be perfect if you say like this. Здравствуйте, есть ли у вас свободные номера? Здравствуйте, можно заказать номер? Здравствуйте, я хочу заказать номер. Добрый день, я хотела бы заказать номер. So these answers are just perfect. Okay. And task 3 is different, of course. And here you have to prepare a monologue, a story on a specific topic. Here it's how I spend my free time. Very simple thing, yeah? And the topics can be like this. Look at the slide. Какие книги вам нравятся? What kind of books do you like reading? How often do you go to museums, to the cinema, on exhibitions? What kind of sport do you do? What kind of TV programs do you like watching on TV? What kind of music do you like? Do you have a hobby? What kind of hobby do you have? So you see, very simple things, yeah? It's about everyday life, hobbies, everyday routines, your interests, and so on. But you have to prepare the monologue, and that's a bit difficult. And it should contain, you see, from 12 to 15 phrases. All right. And now let's look at some tips or advice, some advice. What is the best way to improve my speaking? Of course, you can find much more advice on this topic, but here are, I think, the most important ones. Again, the problem is that teachers, you should encourage your students to do this, and students, candidates, you shouldn't be lazy when learning foreign languages. That's very simple and very effective, yeah. First, speak as much Russian as you can with your friends, colleagues, and your teacher. Try to talk about different things. Practice asking questions to find out what other people think, and so on. Another thing is important. Try both initiating and responding when speaking with your friends and colleagues. And please try to use everyday spoken Russian collocations and etiquette phrases. That's what we've been talking, yeah, before. And please, again, talk on different topics with your friends. And you can use pictures when you talk. If you record yourself, you can listen back and then find ways to improve your language, vocabulary, and pronunciation. It's a good practice. It's a good exercise to record yourself, just to check then how you can improve your language, vocabulary, and sounds, stress, intonation, and so on. Next, you can look at the example of a speaking test. And you should look at the example of a speaking test so you know what to expect on the day of the exam. Well, actually, yeah, you can expect those things we've been talking before, yeah? Initiating and responding questions, initiating a conversation, and making a story, a monologue on a specific topic. If the examiner's comments after the test, so please read them so that you will understand what the examiners are looking for in your speaking test, what you are expected. Yeah? well, next. Aha. Well, again, of course, there much, well, I can give you much more advice, of course, and you can find much more advice on many website resources, actually at our website, and so on. Well, let's briefly talk about assessment criteria. So when teachers assess your productive skills like writing and speaking, it's very important that you achieve communicative goal, like here, like in the example. Take part in a conversation, answer the examiner. The examiner. Скажите, пожалуйста, какая сегодня погода? The candidate. Сегодня вторник. Well, as you understand, the answer is not appropriate. It's not adequate to the communicative goal. And actually, such answer will be given 0 points. So this is very, very important. Listen carefully to what the examiner says and never hesitate to ask for repetition, for support from the examiner. We don't penalize the students for doing this, and actually it's a good technique. Well, another thing is number of words, or not words, phrases. It's wrong. We never count words actually, but it's about the same thing actually. If our candidates are asked to write not less than 15 phrases and 5 questions, that's very important. So you should do what you are asked. Okay? So that's easy. Another task relevance or content. Well, of course, our candidates should be relevant to the task they're given. If they're not, that's very bad actually, and they're given 0 points for that. Another thing is cohesion and coherence. That's about connections between sentences. Look, моя мама сказала мне, что я не читала больше. You see, it's wrong connection, wrong conjunction. And which is correct? Can you tell me? Exactly. Another example. Сегодня хорошая погода, потому что мы идем в парк. Oh, something wrong, yeah, with the logic and cohesion and coherence. What's wrong? Absolutely. Well, of course, Elena, Yulia, for you it's very easy, but for low-level student, it's not that quite easy. And I don't remember, it was Yildiz Taichueva. You have asked me about the criteria, assessment criteria, parameters, and so on. These are 2 very important ones. We consider different mistakes in 2 ways. Content mistakes or communicatively significant errors or mistakes, and communicatively insignificant errors. And you see, yeah, what's the difference? Yeah. Communicatively significant mistakes, they block, impede communication. I think it's clear. And another type of mistakes They don't impede or block or stop communication. That's the main difference. For example, страница Китая, Pekin. Well, even though I can guess from the context, yep, the sentence context, well, this is a bad mistake. And we take out 2 points for such a mistakes. That's quite a lot. Or another thing. В этом термине я редко дома. Какая здесь ошибка? Ну-ка, исправим. Это, наверное... sorry. Yeah, I shift to Russian. In this sentence, I think this sentence was said by someone who speaks Italian, Spanish, Portuguese, probably. Exactly, Elena. Semester. And again, it's a bad mistake because, well, for Russian-speaking people, that doesn't mean much, термин. Or another thing, иногда мы говорим о работе. What is this? Иногда or никогда. So you never know. And again, what is important that this blocks communication. You don't know. You are doubting, yeah, what the meaning is. So that's bad. And communicatively insignificant errors are just simple grammar, noun cases, pronouns, and so on. And we take only 0.5 points. For example, я хочу говорить по-русски хорошо. Well, it's a mistake, of course, but not a serious mistake, yeah? Or в школе я учился физику и математику. Well, that's a bit more serious mistake, but again, we consider it as insignificant. And others. Thank you, Ivana. Yeah, в школе я учил, я изучал. That's very good. And он будет пить кофе без молоком. It's another minor mistake, even though we pay quite a lot of attention at low levels so that our students would be accurate with language. Yeah, exactly. Без молока. Okay. And as I've already told you, etiquette phrases are very important when you do task 2, when you start a conversation. And you can even get extra points if you can use etiquette phrases appropriately and so on. And you can get extra points for pronunciation. Well, actually, I'm running out of time, so you can find all necessary information about different tactics, recommendations, and so on. There are a lot of in this presentation. What to bring with you on the day of the exam, what is forbidden. Of course, there are many more things which are forbidden, but these are the main things. All electronic devices, yeah, and many other things. You just read about it if you are interested. And just a few minutes about very important things. For teachers, maybe, that's more important. But for students or candidates, that's important too. You see, this is the lexical meaning, yeah, Russian as a foreign language, level A2. And you can find here all the words which are necessary to be learned by your students. And our specialists, when we prepare tests, when we make tests, we strictly keep up with the lexical minimum and the standard, state standard, well, to this or another level. And in the standard, there are lists of structures, again, which are important, necessary to be learned, trained, taught by your students. So please use these two books when you plan your language courses or when you plan your preparation for exams and so on. And this is the new one. It's upcoming, so it will be published soon. I'm not sure when, yeah, but upcoming, yeah, maybe in a month or just within 2 or 3 weeks. This book will be published by Zlatoust, but the book has been prepared by language testing specialists in our language testing center of St. Petersburg State University. Well, and it would be very, very important both for teachers and for students when preparing for doing these tests at A level. Yeah, the first book is designed for A-level students. So I highly recommend you to download this book or to buy this book in a bookshop or online. I'm not sure how you can do this, but I think for those candidates who are planning to take tests at our university, this book would be indispensably useful. And I'm finishing my webinar. If you have questions, please type it in the chat box. And the rest of the presentations are very good books, course books you can use when preparing for examinations, and teachers when you train your students for, not only for examinations, of course, yeah? Look, a great range of books you can use for teaching and preparation. Of course, you can look at these books later in the presentation, which will be uploaded, and the final page is Language Testing Center of St. Petersburg State University, website address, email address, telephone numbers, and so on. So if you have questions, I can answer them. Yes, Yelena, foreign students from Omsk or other places, yeah, can do this test. B1, B2, of course, yeah. But you know, B2 is not in English. That's why I'm not talking about this. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you everyone who has attended this webinar. I hope it was useful for all of us. Thank you again, and goodbye.